This final lesson of the French video series reviews irregular verb conjugation and irregular participle formation. We start off with gérer and ser verbs. Gérer verbs will maintain their E prior to the on ending in the nous form. For manger we have mange, 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 mangeons, manger, mange. These gérer verbs will also maintain their E prior to the on ending in their present tense nous form. Ser verbs have a cedilla in their present tense nous form. So for commencer we have commence, 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 commençons, commencer, commence. These ser verbs also have a cedilla in their present tense nous forms. Ayer verbs will undergo a Y to I stem change in all forms except nous and vous. So for envoyer we have envoie, 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 envoyons, envoyer, envoie. These ayer verbs follow the same present tense stem change pattern. For ayer verbs, the Y to I stem change is optional. For payer, for example, we have paye, 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 payons, payer, paye. For these ayer verbs, the Y to I stem change is also optional. Double consonant verbs have a double L or double T in all present tense forms except nous and vous. For example, appeler, appelle, 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 appelons, appeler, appelle, and jeter, jette, 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 jetons, jeter, jette. These verbs also follow the double consonant pattern. Certain verbs have an accent grave for their E in all present tense forms except nous and vous. For acheter we have achète, 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 achetons, acheter, achète. These verbs also follow the accent grave E pattern in the present tense. Certain ayer verbs instead take the present tense ER endings, such as ouvrir, ouvre, 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 ouvrons, ouvrez, ouvre. These ayer verbs also take the present tense ER endings instead. Weird verbs under the present tense end in T in their elle form and add an S in their plural forms. So for traduit we have traduit, 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 traduisons, traduisez, traduisent. These weird verbs follow the same pattern in the present tense. Taire follows the same present tense pattern as weird verbs. Te, 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 taisons, taisez, taise. Plaire follows the same present tense pattern as weird verbs but with a circumflex accented I in the elle form. Plaît, 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 plaisons, plaisez, plaise. Quérir verbs undergo multiple irregularities, such as quérir, acquier, 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 acquérons, acquérir, acquier. These quérir verbs follow the same patterns. Dormir-type verbs undergo multiple irregularities, which will become more clear when we actually look at the conjugational tables. Dors, 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 dormons, dormez, dorme. Ment, 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 mentons, mentez, ment. Pas, 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 partons, partez, part. Sans, 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 sentons, sentez, sont. C'est, servons, servez, servent. so, 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 sautant, sauter, sort. And the verb courir is conjugated similarly to dormir-type verbs, but it keeps one stem, cour, in all forms. Cour, 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 courant, courir, cour. Mourir is conjugated similarly to courir, but with an O to E stem change in all forms except nous and vous. Mour, 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 mourant, mourer, mour. Some verbs are only irregular in the il, elle present tense form. The verbs valoir and pleuvoir are irregular impersonal verbs that are only conjugated in the il form to begin with. Il faut, il pleut. These verbs end in t in the il, elle form, but they have no other irregularities in the present tense. Some verbs are only irregular in the singular present tense forms. The verbs mettre and battre remove one t in their singular present tense forms. Mettre, mette, mette, mettons, mettez, mette. Battre, batte, batte, battons, battez, batte. The verbs suivre and vivre remove the VR from their singular present tense forms, and they end in T in their il, elle form. Suis, 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 suivons, suivez, suivent. Vis, 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 vivons, vivez, vive. Some verbs are only irregular in their plural present tense forms, such as prendre. It removes the D in its plural forms and doubles the N in the plural il, elle form. Prendre, 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 prenons, prenez, prenne. Vaincre undergoes a C to QU spell change in the plural present tense forms. Vain, 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 vaincons, vainquez, vaincre. Fuir takes a Y in its nous and vous form and an I in the plural il, elle form. Fui, 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 fouillons, fouillez, fouille. Some verbs have two separate irregular stems, one for singular conjugations and another for plural conjugations. For example, the verbs savoir and valoir. Valoir and savoir have their own types of irregular endings as well. C'est, savons, savez, savent. Val, 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 valons, valet, val. Bouillir removes the ILL in its singular form and ends in S or T in the singular forms. It then takes the ER or RE endings in the plural forms. Bou, 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 bouillon, bouillet, bouille. Aître verbs remove the T in all forms except il, elle in the singular form, and they add two S's in the plural forms. So for connaître, we have connaît, 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 connaissons, connaissez, connaissent. And here are a few aître verbs which follow the same pattern. Quatre follows the same pattern as aître verbs despite having a slightly different ending. Quoi, 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 croissant, croisser, croisse. Indre verbs remove the D in all forms, end in T in the il, elle singular form, and add G in their plural forms. So for attendre, we have attend, 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 atteignons, atteignez, atteignez. Here are some more indre verbs which follow the same pattern. Some verbs have three irregular stems depending on which subject is being used. This includes the verbs mouvoir, pouvoir, vouloir, recevoir, and devoir. These verbs also have their own types of irregular endings. When we take a look at the conjugational tables, it will be easier to notice them. Mouvoir. Me, mouvant, mouvez, meuve. pouvoir, pe, puis, pe, pouvant, pouvez, peuvent. And the form puis is usually used in interrogative contexts, such as puis-je, vouloir, veut, voulons, voulez, veulent. Recevoir, reçoit, recevons, recevez, reçoivent. Devoir, doit, devons, devez, doivent. The verb boire also has 3 present tense stems, but its singular stem is regular, whereas the other 2 stems are irregular. Bois, bois, bouvons, bouvez, boivent. And we have certain verbs which don't follow any of the previous patterns. We have dormir and venir, which follow similar conjugational patterns to one another. Tiens, tenons, tenez, tiennent. Viens, venons, venez, viennent. Écrire and elle follow similar conjugational patterns to one another. Écrit, écrit, écrivons, écrivez, écrivent. Lire, lissons, lissez, lise. Quoi and voir have the same conjugational patterns despite belonging to different verb groups. Quoi, croyons, croyez, croient. Voir, voyons, voyez, voient. Vêtir removes the I and takes the RE endings in all present tense forms. Ve, veton, vete, vet. Dire and faire follow similar conjugational patterns to one another with the exception of the plural il, elle form. Dissons, dites, dis. Fait, faisons, faites, font. Assoit has 2 acceptable sets of irregular present tense conjugations. Assied, assoit. Assied, assoit. Assied, assoit. Asseyons, assoyons. Asseyez, assoyez. Asseyez, assoyez. Aller, va, allons, allez, vont. Avoir, a, avant, avait, on. Être, suis, est, sommes, êtes, sont. With the exception of être, all imperfect stems for regular and irregular verbs in French are formed by removing the on ending from their respective present tense nous forms. So as a result, the only irregular imperfect verbs in French are those that have irregular present tense nous forms. Now for être, the imperfect stem is et. Était, étions, étiez, étaient. Gère verbs maintain their e in their present tense nous form, so that e is included in all imperfect forms with the exception of nous and vous. So for manger we have manger, mangiez, mangions, mangiez, manger. Gère verbs under the imperfect remain regular in the nous and vous form, and their irregular stem applies to the other imperfect forms. Ser verbs have a cedilla in their present tense nous form, so this cedilla also applies to the imperfect forms, but again with the exception of nous and vous. So for commencer, we have commencer, 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 commencions, commencier, commencer. For ser verbs, their nu and vu forms remain regular under the imperfect, and their irregular stem for the imperfect applies to the other four forms. Uire verbs add an s at the end of their imperfect stem because this s is included in their nu present tense forms. So for traduire, we have traduisez, 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 traduisions, traduisiez, traduisez. For uire verbs, their irregular imperfect stem applies to all forms, including nu and vu. Aître verbs remove their t and add a double s at the end of their imperfect stem. So for connaître, we have connaissez, 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 connaissions, connaissiez, connaissez. For être verbs, their imperfect irregular stem applies to all forms, including nu and vu. Indre verbs remove their d and add a g prior to the end of their imperfect stem. So for attendre, we have atteignez, 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 atteignons, atteignez, atteignez. The irregular imperfect stems for indre verbs apply to all forms, including nu and vu. A large number of irregular ayer verbs end in on in the present tense nu form, and not the usual issons for ayer verbs. So as a result for these verbs, you only need to replace their ayer or oyer ending with the usual imperfect endings for those verbs. So for ouvrir and dormir, we have ouvrez, 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 ouvrions, ouvrier, ouvrez. Dormez, 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 dormions, dormiez, dormez. Ayer verbs that follow this imperfect pattern include ouvrir-type verbs, dormir-type verbs, certain ayer verbs with two present tense stems, certain ayer verbs with three present tense stems, quérir verbs, and the verbs dormir, venir, and vêtir. And there are several other verbs with irregular imperfect stems based on their present tense nu forms. So using the irregular imperfect stems of dia and vanc, we have disse, 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 dissions, dissiez, disse. Vanquez, 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 vanquions, vanquiez, vanquez. Lastly, the verbs valoir and pleuvoir are irregular impersonal verbs and are only conjugated in the il form. Il fallait, il pleuvait. For ger verbs, in I will precede all preterite endings with the exception of the plural il, elle form. So for manger we have manger, mangea, mangea, mangeâmes, mangeâtes, manger. Under the preterite, ger verbs will include an I prior to the preterite ending in all forms with the exception of the plural il, elle form, which will remain regular. Ser verbs will include a cedilla prior to the preterite endings in all forms, but again with the exception of the plural il, elle form. So for commencer we have commencer, commença, commença, commençâmes, commençâtes, commencer. So ser verbs will have a cedilla in their preterite stem with the exception of the regular plural il, elle form. The next few groups of verbs add the regular ir or re preterite endings to their irregular preterite stems in all forms, and this also applies to the elle plural form. So for uire verbs, they add an s to the end of their preterite stems. For traduire, we have traduisi, 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 traduisim, traduisit, traduisir. Indre verbs add a g prior to the n of their preterite stems. For attendre, we have atteigner, 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 atteignim, atteignit, atteigner. Quérir verbs will remove the ayer to form their preterite stems. For acquérir, we have acquis, 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 acquim, acquit, acquier. These verbs have their own types of irregular preterite stems, but they take the usual ir or re preterite endings. Using the irregular preterite stems of dir and vank as examples, we have di, dim, dit, dir. Vanki, 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 vankim, vankit, vankir. There are a large number of verbs that have irregular stems in the preterite based on irregular past participles that end in u. These types of verbs have their own irregular preterite endings, in addition to their irregular preterite stems. So the preterite endings for these irregular u past participle verbs are us, ut, er. For apparaître, its preterite stem is apparu, so the preterite conjugations are apparu, 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 apparum, apparut, apparur. Now, regular re verbs with past participles ending in u, such as vendre, whose past participle is vendu, they will still be conjugated regularly in the preterite, and they do not fall under this irregular category of u past participle verbs. The following groups of verbs do belong to this category of irregular u past participle preterite verbs. We have aître verbs, courir verbs, two-stem present tense verbs, savoir and valoir, three-stem present tense verbs, and other verbs with irregular u past participles. Mourir and aître do not have u past participles, but they do have u preterite stems, mourut and fou. The preterite conjugations for mourir: mourut, 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 morum, mourut, mourur. The preterite conjugations for aître: fou, 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 fum, fut, fur. The verbs dormir and venir are conjugated similarly to irregular u past participle verbs in the preterite, but they have different stems. They also have slightly different nu and vu preterite conjugations compared to irregular u past participle verbs. Their preterite stems are ton and vent. The preterite conjugations for dormir: ton, 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 tom, tant, ton. For venir: vent, 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 vam, vent, vent. And once more we have the impersonal verbs falloir and pleuvoir, which are only conjugated in the il form. Il fallut, il plut. All verbs, whether regular or irregular, use their same stem for both the future and conditional. To that stem you add the future or conditional endings afterwards. For ayer verbs, they apply their y to I stem change to their stem prior to adding the future or conditional endings. So for nettoyer, we have nettoyere, nettoyera, nettoyera, nettoyero, nettoyere, nettoyeron. Under the conditional, nettoyere, 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 nettoyerion, nettoyerier, nettoyerai. These are the future and conditional stems for ayer verbs with a y to I stem change. For ayer verbs such as payer, the y to I stem change is optional. So for ayer verbs, you can use either the regular or irregular future or conditional stem. Double consonant verbs apply their spell change to the infinitive stem prior to adding the future or conditional endings. So for appeler, we have appellerai, appellera, appellera, appellero, appellerai, appelleron, appellerai, 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 appellerion, appellerier, appellerai. And these are the future and conditional stems for double consonant verbs. If the E in the infinitive is not accented, then accent grave E verbs will apply their spell change in the future and conditional stem. So for acheter we have achetere, achetera, achetera, acheteron, achetere, acheteron, achetere, 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 acheterion, acheterier, achetere. These are the future and conditional stems for accent grave E verbs without an accent in their infinitive. If the infinitive has an E with an acute accent, then the accent grave is optional for the future and conditional stem. The future and conditional stems for quérir verbs end in a double R. For acquérir we have acquérer, acquéra, acquéra, acquéron, acquéré, acquéron, acquéré, 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 acquérion, acquérier, acquéré. Here are some more future and conditional stems for quérir verbs. Savoir and valoir have their own types of future and conditional stems. For savoir, we have saurer, saura, saura, sauron, saurer, sauron, saurer, 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 saurion, saurier, saurer. For valoir, we have vaudrer, vaudra, vaudra, vaudron, vaudré, vaudron, vaudré, 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 vaudrion, vaudrier, vaudré. The verbs that have three stems in the present tense also have their own types of irregular future and conditional stems. For mouvoir, we have mouvre, mouvra, mouvra, mouvron, mouvre, mouvron, mouvre, 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 mouvrion, mouvrier, mouvre. And there are several other verbs which have their own unique kinds of irregular future and conditional stems. For avoir, aure, aura, aura, auron, aure, auron, aure, 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 aurion, aurier, aure. And we have the impersonal verbs falloir and pleuvoir, which are only conjugated in the il form. Il faudra, il faudrait. Il pleuvra, il plus vrai. Remember that the present subjunctive endings are identical to the er present tense endings, with the exception of the nu and vu forms, which take the imperfect endings. For ayer verbs, the y to I stem change applies to all forms except nu and vu, just like in the present tense. So for envoyer, we have envoie, 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 envoyons, envoyer, envoie. And this y to I stem change will apply to these ayer verbs as well. The y to I stem change is optional for ayer verbs such as pailler. The y to I stem change is also optional for these ayer verbs. For double consonant verbs, their spell change will apply to all forms except nu and vu, just as it does in the present tense. So for appeler and jeter, we have appel, 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 appelions, appelier, appel. Jette, 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 jetions, jetier, jette. These are other double consonant verbs which follow the same pattern. In the present tense, prendre only has a double N spell change in the third person plural form, but under the present subjunctive, it will follow the same pattern as the other double consonant verbs. Prenne, 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 prenions, prenier, prenne. For accent grave E verbs, their spell change will apply to all present subjunctive forms with the exception of nu and vu, just as it does in the present tense. So for acheter, we have achète, 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 achétions, achetier, achète. And the same rules apply to these accent grave verbs. For quérir verbs, the ayer stem change will apply to all present subjunctive forms except nu and vu, just as it does in the present tense. So for acquérir, we have acquiert, 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 acquérions, acquérir, acquiert. And notice that despite being an ayer verb, acquérir does not add an iss to its present subjunctive stem. And these are some more quérir verbs which follow the same pattern. Uire verbs add an s at the end of their present subjunctive stem. So for traduire, we have traduise, 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 traduisions, traduisier, traduise. These are the present subjunctive stems for uire verbs. Aître verbs remove the T and add a double S at the end of their present subjunctive stem. So for connaître, we have connaisse, 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 connaissions, connaissier, connaisse. These are the present subjunctive stems for aître verbs. Indre verbs remove the D and add a G prior to the N of their present subjunctive stems. So for attendre, we have atteigne, 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 atteignons, atteigner, atteigne. These are the present subjunctive stems for indre verbs. There are several irregular ayer verbs that do not take the regular issent present tense ending in the il, elle form. So in the present subjunctive, they will simply replace their infinitive ayer ending with the usual present subjunctive endings, and they will not add the iss to their stem. So for ouvrir and dormir, we have ouvre, 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 ouvrions, ouvrier, ouvre. Dorme, 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 dormions, dormier, dorme. Under the present subjunctive, both ouvrir-type verbs and dormir-type verbs will follow this same pattern. The ayer verbs courir, bouillir, and venir also do not add an iss in their present subjunctive stems, because their third-person plural present tense il, elle forms do not end in issent. Under the present subjunctive, mourir will undergo an OTE stem change in all forms except nu and vu, just like its stem change in the present tense. Mourir will also not add an iss in its present subjunctive stem. Me, mourions, mouriez, me. We have several irregular verbs with their own unique kinds of present subjunctive stems. You simply take these stems and then add the usual present subjunctive endings afterwards. Using dia and vonk as examples. Dis, dis, disio, disie, dis. Vonk, 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 vonkion, vonkie, vonk. The impersonal verbs valoir and pleuvoir are only conjugated in the il form. Il faille, il pleuve. Certain verbs have two irregular present subjunctive stems. They have a primary stem and a secondary stem that only applies to the nu and vu forms. We have boire and vouloir, both of which have two irregular present subjunctive stems. Boive, 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 bouvions, bouviez, boive. Veuille, veuille, veuille. Voulions, vouliez, veuille. There are also a few verbs with one regular and one irregular present subjunctive stem. The verbs quoi and tenir. Quoi, 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 croyons, croyez, quoi. Tiens, tiens, tiens. Tenions, teniez, tiens. Avoir and aître have two irregular present subjunctive stems, and some of their forms have irregular present subjunctive endings. For avoir, we have et, ayons, ayer, et. For être, soit, 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 soyons, soyez, soit. The imperfect subjunctive stems for all verbs are based on their third-person singular preterite forms, so all verbs that are irregular in the preterite will also be irregular in the imperfect subjunctive. Gère verbs will have an e that precedes all imperfect subjunctive endings, so for manger we have mangeas, mangeas, mangea, mangeation, mangeassiez, mangeas. These are the imperfect subjunctive stems for gère verbs. Ser verbs will have a cedilla in all imperfect subjunctive conjugations. So for commencer, we have commenças, commenças, commença, commençation, commençassiez, commenças. These are imperfect subjunctive stems for ser verbs. A few groups of irregular verbs have imperfect subjunctive stems ending in I, starting off with weird verbs whose stems end in si. So for traduire, we have traduisis, traduisis, traduisi, traduisisio, traduisissiez, traduisis. Indre verbs have imperfect subjunctive stems ending in G and I. For attendre, we have atteignis, 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 atteignissons, atteignisiez, atteignis. The imperfect subjunctive stems for quérir verbs end in QUI. For acquérir, we have acquis, 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 acquisition, acquissiez, acquis. And there are several other verbs with irregular imperfect subjunctive stems ending in I. For die and vank under the imperfect subjunctive. Dis, dis, di, dision, disie, dis. Vankis, vankis, vanki, vankision, vankisie, vankis. Preterite verbs that are based on irregular u past participles have the same stems for both the preterite and imperfect subjunctive. So for apparaître we have apparus, apparus, apparu, apparution, apparusier, apparus. The following groups of verbs, starting off with aître verbs, have imperfect subjunctive stems based on irregular u past participles. Courir verbs. The two stem present tense verbs savoir and valoir. Three stem present tense verbs. And other verbs based on irregular u past participles. The verbs mourir and aître do not have preterite stems based on their past participles, but they do have the same imperfect subjunctive pattern as irregular u past participle verbs. Morus, morus, moru, morusion, morusier, morus. Fus, fus, fu, fusion, fusier, fus. The verbs dormir and venir are conjugated similarly to u past participle verbs in the imperfect subjunctive, but they have different stems. They also have slightly different third-person singular imperfect subjunctive conjugations compared to irregular u past participle based verbs. Tens, tens, ten, tension, tensier, tens. Vence, vence, vent, vention, vencier, vence. And the impersonal verbs falloir and pleuvoir are only conjugated in the il form. Il fallut, il plut. There are 4 verbs with uniquely irregular commands under the imperative mood. Avoir, ayons, ayez. Être, sois, soyons, soyez. Savoir, sache, sachons, sachez. Vouloir, veuillez, veuillons, veuillez. Now these irregular commands, the majority of them are based on the present subjunctive, but savoir and vouloir have different present subjunctive conjugations in the nu and vous form compared to their commands. When looking at the present subjunctive, you'll notice that under the nu and vous forms, savoir and vouloir have slightly different conjugations compared to their command forms. All other irregular commands will be based on the same irregularities that they have in the present tense tu, nu, and vous forms. And present tense tu forms ending in es will remove the s to form the tu command. The verb aller also removes the s from its present tense tu form va to form the tu command va without the s. And here is a side-by-side comparison of the command forms and present subjunctive forms of these 4 verbs. French present participles are formed by replacing the on ending in the present tense nu form with en. So nearly all irregular present participles are based on verbs that are irregular in the present tense nu form. The present participles for ayer verbs include an e prior to the en ending. Faire verbs have a cedilla in their present participles. Uire verbs include an s prior to their present participle ending. Aître verbs have a double s prior to their present participle endings. Indre verbs have a gn prior to their present participle endings. quérir verbs do not end in issent in their present participles, despite being ayer verbs. The same applies to other ayer verbs without issent present tense endings, as well as dormir-type verbs, the two-stem present tense ayer verbs valoir and bouillir, three-stem present tense ayer verbs, and the verbs dormir, venir, and vêtir. And there are several verbs with their own types of irregular present participles. The verbs avoir, aître, and savoir have present participles that are unrelated to their present tense new forms. Savoir also has a secondary adjective or noun present participle that is derived from its present tense new form savant. There are a few groups of verbs that also have secondary present participles. They can be used as adjectives or nouns. So we have alternate present participles ending in ent, alternate present participles ending in gon, and alternate present participles ending in con. There are a few groups of past participles that end in t, starting off with uire verbs. And verbs, the past participles of ouvrir-type verbs end in ert. From the lessons on irregular preterite and irregular imperfect subjunctive conjugations, we know that there are irregular u past participle based verbs, starting off with aître verbs. Clure verbs. The past participles for enclure and occlure actually end in us. The two stem present tense verbs savoir and valoir. Three stem present tense verbs the verbs dormir and venir, the impersonal verbs valoir and pleuvoir, and other verbs with irregular past participles ending in u. Next are quérir verbs whose past participles end in is, and other verbs which have their own types of irregular past participles. There are many irregular verbs which have several prefix derivatives. You simply attach a prefix to the beginning of the irregular verb, and then that new verb will inherit the same irregularities as the verb from which it derives. So we have dormir and venir-based verbs. So, for example, the verb obtenir takes on the same irregularities that dormir does. It simply attaches the prefix ob at the beginning of each conjugation. Courir-based verbs. The verb accourir will inherit the same irregularities that courir has. Faire-based verbs. So satisfaire will take on the same irregularities that faire has. recevoir has derivatives which modify the stem of the base verb, but their endings are still conjugated in the same way. The verb décevoir will take on the same irregularities that recevoir has. It will simply replace the RE with a DE. Next are dire-based verbs. Now, dire-based verbs are conjugated differently than dire in the present tense vous form. Dire is conjugated as dit, but dire-based verbs end in dise in the present tense vous form. So the verb contredire will take on most of the irregularities that dire does, but with the exception of the present tense vous form. Now the verb maudire appears to be based on dire, but it is actually conjugated like a regular ayer verb, such as choisir. Prendre-based verbs. So using apprendre as an example, it will take on all the irregularities that prendre does. Écrire, like recevoir, has derivatives which modify the stem of the base verb, but their endings are still conjugated in the same manner. So the verb prescrire will take on the same irregularities that écrire does. Jeter-based verbs. So using rejeter as an example, it will take on the same irregularities that jeter does. Ouvrir-based verbs. So the verb rouvrir will take on the same irregularities as ouvrir. Dormir-type verbs also have prefixed derivatives, such as consentir. It will take on the same irregularities as sentir. And as another example, démentir will take on the same irregularities as mentir. Mettre-based verbs, such as promettre, will take on the same irregularities as mettre. Battre is only irregular in the present tense, so verbs such as abattre will also take on the same present tense irregularities as battre. First is the verb ayer. For the most part, it's conjugated like a regular verb. It just has a few accent modifications in some of its conjugations. Ij verbs combine the irregularities of acute accent E verbs with ger verbs in the present tense and present subjunctive. The verb protéger has a grave accent in its present tense and present subjunctive forms with the exception of nous and vous. It also adds an E prior to its on ending in the present tense nous form. And ager verbs like protéger will follow the same pattern as ger verbs in the other tenses and moods. There are two groups of ouvrir verbs that are irregular, but both groups are regular under the future and conditional. So let's take a look at the first group of ouvrir verbs. So here are the irregular conjugations for résoudre. The second group of ouvrir verbs follow different conjugational patterns. These are the verbs coudre and moudre. The irregular conjugations for coudre. and the irregular conjugations for mudra. Now, with the exception of kudra, all udra verbs from both groups will follow this three-stem pattern. The first stem is used for the present tense singular forms. The second stem is for the present tense plural forms, present subjunctive, and imperfect. And their third stem is for the preterite and imperfect subjunctive. Kudra has a slightly different three-stem pattern compared to the other udra verbs. Its first stem is used for the present tense singular forms. Its second stem is for the present tense plural forms, the present subjunctive, the imperfect, and the preterite. And the third stem is only used for the imperfect subjunctive. And these are the present and past participles for all udra verbs. We have finally completed this review, and we have completed this French video series as a whole. I again apologize for any mispronunciations I may have, as I am not a French speaker. As I always say, if you could please do me a favor and share this video series with your friends and teachers, I would very much appreciate that. And that is all for now, so until next time.